Kyle Dubas finally traded Nylander, something he said he'd never do, which is great. The Blue Jackets have Alex Nylander now. And this might be the start of the fire sale, but that is such a Dubas trade. Like,
dude,
you
that's exactly what was tweeted at me yesterday.
Emil
That's
Bemstrom.
such a Dubas trade.
Man, I want Emil Bemstrom. I need him.
Like,
need him on my team.
When someone, oh man, who was it? Anthony Petrelli, I think. They tweeted, they're like, oh yeah, Dubas has loved Emil Bemstrom since his draft year, and I'm like, yeah, of course he has. Like, he does fall
in love with. Like it's like Charlie Brown and that ugly Christmas tree. Like there's some things where you're like, I see potential here.
I never thought it was such a bad little tree.
Yeah,
maybe all it needed was a little love. Bemstrom's a funny player. He was really highly touted at one point. Made too much money. Kind of fell off a cliff. I don't remember if injuries were involved or anything. And now he's making $900,000. And this is exactly the kind of tinker around the edges deal that he would make all the time in Toronto. And we'd be like, maybe this is something. Maybe this is something big. Do you remember what an unbelievably disproportionate amount of energy we gave to a trade that involved two players? And the two players were Per Lindholm and Nick Petan. We went to war over that damn trade. I'm pretty sure it helped fracture Dubas's relationship with Mike Babcock, because he would like put Petan in shitty situations like to spite management.
Yeah, and then Petan got him fired.
Thank goodness. Good. I'm glad. That was the best thing he ever did for this team.
Yep.
Thanks there, Nick. But he does these trades where you're like, yeah, they could be something. They could be a little thing, but they so rarely added up to anything worth getting excited about. Mason Marchment for Dennis Malgin. You know what I mean?
Well, like and Mason Marchment turned into a pretty good player, and
just dicking around the edges. Like he had victories too. Like, listen, there are
tons of them.
There are parts of this team that the Leafs have Kyle Dubas to thank for.
Jake McCabe.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and even like, a Bobby McMahon. That was a really smart deal in the minors. But you got to take so many swings to come up with anything that's going to have any sort of impact on your roster.
Well, and isn't it funny that we always had a thing. What did you always say about Kyle Dubas last year?
Loves his guys,
right? I think Kyle Dubas loves his core fours and loves cap problems. Because he has gone from one team with a core four to a team with a full decade older core four. And it is a core four. He talked about that in the press conference. He said, we're not going to move on. He had a press conference from Crosby, Malkin, Letang, and Carlson. He's not going to move on.
So many fewer press conferences. However many he has, he should have less.
And listen, I don't, it's not over yet. But right now, nobody has mentioned this yet. Nobody wants to talk about this yet because this player is a legend and he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. But as far as fit with the team goes, that Carlson trade could end up being a disaster. Because it's one of those things
How
where...
are you getting younger after making that deal?
It's a top 10 protected first rounder that went to San Jose, right? So if they are in the bottom 10 in the league this year, they're going to be fine and they'll get their first round pick, but then have to give up next year. But when you look at, let me read you this. He said, are there moves out there that would allow us to add younger players to the organization that can help expedite things and support the group we already have here? We're trying to look through all of that. If there are scenarios where we can move out some of our younger prospects for players that are a bit older and closer to ready, we would look at that.
Younger prospects?
So this is what I'm saying.
Who?
Well, so he's gone out and he got Puljujarvi. He got Nylander and traded Nylander. Like, he's trying to find...
Nylander's like 39.
And then he says...
He's been in the league forever.
No, but he's in his 20s.
No, I know. I'm fine.
Younger by the... grading on a curve here for the Penguins. New energy. That's really what we need. Kyle, who did you bring in this offseason? You got Graves. You got Achari. You got Carlson. You got tons of new energy.
34-year-old, I think, Riley Smith.
Who, unfortunately hasn't worked out. He'll be a great add to whatever team picks him up.
Vegas.
In a deal.
Yeah,
oh, my God.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Send him back.
Do it. Do the right
thing. That might actually happen.
You know what? Because Dubas will do right by the player.
Oh,
oh! No. Oh, Pittsburgh. Like, dude. If, like, okay, you go out and you get Carlson. Like, what did we say when it happened?
Mm-hmm.
We're like, all right, well, you're certainly committed to going for it now.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're not even a full season after that deal. And you're like, we're going to try to get younger. Dude, if you hadn't just got here, that's the kind of quote that gets guys fired or gets fans asking for it at very least. I think he's a really smart guy. I think he's going to inevitably do a good job with the Penguins. Mm-hmm. But I cannot believe a dude who came up under the direction of Lou Lamoriello.
The tutelage
of Lou Lamoriello.
Always uncomfortable with that word.
I'll toot on your tutelage. I cannot
toot
believe,
on your lidge. What you're looking for.
Yeah,
there you go.
I cannot believe a guy who came up under the tutelage of Lou Lamoriello stuffs his foot in his mouth down to the molars this often. Kyle, stop!
Can we make you more upset, Steven? Do you want to get more upset?
Do it.
Yeah.
Because
Are you bringing up the Coyote stuff? No, I'm kidding.
Oh my god. We should.
We will.
We will. We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Because Kyle Dubas.
Maddie put the thumbs up. She wants fire.
Kyle Dubas did your favorite thing.
What?
He spoke to the media. He talked to the Athletic. That's where some of these quotes
Yes.
came
He
from.
just has to stop.
And I want to give you this quote that was in the Athletic when he spoke to them. Kyle Dubas said, Dubas said his immediate plan for the Penguins is to the current group. He wants to give them a chance to improve their postseason standing. I think we've had enough moments throughout the season when we're at our best that we show we can play with anybody. It just hasn't happened enough, Dubas said. So we're looking for that in the next stretch here.
That's a big old nothing burger.
Can you go a little bit back, Jesse? Mm-hmm. Look at what Marcus Pettersson said.
Marcus Pettersson said he wanted Dubas to say he believes in us like we believe in ourselves.
And he shouldn't. Kyle shouldn't. That would be so disingenuous. Love you, Marcus Pettersson. Would love for you to be a Leaf. I hope they're selling you because if it doesn't work out with Anderson, I would really love Marcus Pettersson to be a Leaf. But it's great that you believe in yourself. That's awesome.
Why are you looking to make changes if the belief is in this group? I don't understand.
Well, the
group's good. Why are you making
He
changes?
shouldn't give quotes to the media.
He's got to stop.
The dissonance,
He's
though,
gotta stop.
is that he stacked the team. Like, you had an older core, you knew that. You had Letang, Malkin, Crosby, and you're committed to that. So what do? You go out and you add another bunch of olds. What most people would do is they would go, those guys are a little bit old. Probably should add some young.
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't hate a lot of the moves he made. Ryan Graves was obviously...
I told you guys, Dale, that was a terrible deal.
Man.
Told you. I was like, who? What?
You were on that shit from day one.
I was on the Penguins stink from day one. This is not a well-constructed roster.
But, like, I love Achari. I
Me too.
liked the Riley Smith deal when they made it.
Of course. You can like certain players and go, that's not a fit.
Well, and then you're like, it's tough because that deal was made very shortly after Vegas won the Cup. Mm-hmm. And you're like, yeah, Riley Smith is great, and he just won the Cup. And then you're like, oh, he's in his like mid-30s and just played hockey till the end of June. And that generally doesn't lead to good seasons the next year. You know what I mean? Unless you're like a super duper star. Mm-hmm. Ah, man. He wore the "we can and we will" phrase around his neck for half a decade, and he's making the same mistakes. Shut up.
And
stop.
And so he's saying they need new energy in there. By the way, Sidney Crosby is having if he's not nominated for the Hart,
he won't be.
That's bullshit, by the way.
If they make the playoffs, he may.
Who cares?
There's like nominated for the Hart in what order?
He's got to be top 3.
No. There's 3 guys ahead of him.
There's too many good players.
There's Matthews, Kucherov, McKinnon.
But it's value to
Connor
the team.
McDavid is probably 4.
So here's what I would say to that. I would argue
for now
that if the Pittsburgh Penguins didn't have Crosby having an otherworldly year this year, they would have sold already.
Oh, they'd be in the toilet.
In fact, Fenway Sports Group might be selling the franchise.
Yes, but there's 4 other guys who are more impactful to their team this season.
I think that's Poopy Kaka. But
It's
I will,
what I'm
I will
arguing.
take
Like,
that.
you can
I
have
will-
that opinion, but
I believe.
He can be in the
See,
conversation.
this is it was the same argument I had in 2017 with McDavid. The Oilers didn't make the playoffs, but where the fuck would they have been without him?
I understand.
That's my
I understand the point Adam's making. I understand it.
yeah, but if you look at the numbers, like what Kucherov does is in comparison to his next closest teammate, I think he's 30 points ahead of Braden Point.
I mean,
He's second on his
the
team
Lightning.
scoring.
Wow, it's even in the name.
They would straight up not be in a playoff spot with Hook.
No,
Exactly.
No.
What Nathan McKinnon is doing in terms of their one-line team, we keep emphasizing that,
Yep.
is very impressive to his team. Plus, those teams are winning. I think you have to take that into account. If Matthews puts up 75 goals, he should be ahead of Sidney Crosby in the Hart Ballot.
and
I think
everybody else. By the way,
Artemi Panarin, what he's been contributing to the Rangers and dragging them throughout the season. No, now they're playing more as a team, so he's less valuable for the Hart. And then David Pastrnak, if you want to throw him in there, like I think there's
man.
like 6 guys here. Plus Sidney Crosby's probably in like 7. There's a lot of guys having impressive individual seasons.
but he's 36, and the Penguins are garbage if he's not in their lineup.
You know, you're allowed to just say he's extremely good. He doesn't have to be nominated for anything.
No, he does. I believe that he does.
Yeah.
I believe that he
think
does.
Connor McDavid is ahead of him on the Hart ballot. I think Kucherov is. I think McKinnon is. I think Austin Matthews is.
I think the Hart ballot is aptly named because he has so much heart. I'm glad it's not the Jeffrey Award for the best,
Jeffrey.
most valuable to his team. The Jeffrey Award.
Most valuable Jeffrey.
HART. It was actually named after somebody. Weird. So I think if
Brett the Hitman.
if you're looking at the Pittsburgh Penguins, who I don't believe have outside of the top 10 protected, if that's not a part of it, if they end in the mid section of the league, they're not going to have a first rounder this year. So Gensel, if he's not hurt, and I've heard he's more hurt than they're letting on, if Gensel is, you don't know when Gensel's coming back, you don't know how good he's going to be, and you're hoping, and very very likely he's trying to get an extension out of this, right?
Yeah.
So that's the guy that gets you the first round pick back. Who do you
Well-
sell? You can't trade Graves.
So
You're not trading Jari.
let me flag something as well. So that first round pick is top 10 protected. Well, what happens if it's top 10? You get to pick in the top 10 this year,
That's awesome.
right?
Except that you're bad enough
Except
to,
you still owe a pick
next year.
next year when there's a pretty good chance this gets worse. It better not get worse.
Yeah.
So you
because
go
your
for
first round pick's on the hook.
Yeah.
So you go for it this year.
Boy.
I also think they're going to be competitive. Like, I don't think, even regardless of how much you trade, a Dubas trades off this by March 8th, I still think they'll be hanging in there because their goaltending's good enough. And like, when you have decent goaltending, you can hang it around in the standings. I don't think they fall to top 10. That's a pretty drastic.
Well, it's a
fall.
lottery, right? Like
Oh yeah, you could win a lottery ball, and then you're in the
Yeah.
top 10 randomly. Yeah,
it's you could win a lottery ball.
for them lose. Yeah,
You know,
I don't think it's that crazy, guys. There's 32 teams in the league, and the Penguins
not so many teams.
currently sit 23rd.
Oh, that's not the catchphrase. Sorry. What?
The Penguins currently sit 23rd in the league out of 32.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not out of the
based,
realm.
Based on where they are right now, they would not. They would maintain their first round pick.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go.
And I think, like you look at who's ahead of them, right? They're 7 points out. They have the Islanders, Devils, 7 points out. The Tampa Bay Lightning are the second wild card team.
Wow.
And they're 5 points up on the Washington Capitals. That's why when everybody was saying, "Oh, the Leafs are fighting for a wild card spot," I'm like, that is so disingenuous. Get out of here.
They were.
No, they
Then they
weren't.
won 6 straight.
No, they weren't. Go back and
They got
look.
12 of
go
12.
back and look at a week and a half ago. No, they weren't. They played 3 or 4 less games than the Lightning. Get out of here. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. And they were up on the Caps and Devils. Anyway, long story short, Washington, New Jersey, and the New York Islanders are tied at 60 points. The Pittsburgh Penguins have 58. You know who's only 2 or 4 points behind the Pittsburgh Penguins and could catch them is the Buffalo Sabres. Guys, that's what we're talking about when we talk about a talent drop-off here. Okay, they're only 4 or 5 points out or whatever it is with whatever team we're talking about. Look at who they're next to.
By points percentage, I believe the Penguins and the Sabres are 6 places difference.
They are.
from each other. Yeah.
So
There's
They
a
are.
little gameplay differential
Fair,
there.
fair.
but
Fair.
I'd like to point something
made.
out.
Yeah,
I'd
you
like
got to
to-
win the games at hand. Too,
Yes.
you know?
Yes. I'd like to point something out.
No.
This trade deadline is going to be boring because names and bleh. The trade deadline isn't just about names. It's about teams. It's about franchises. It's about futures, right? It's not just about this year. Like, we just duked it out over the Flames. We don't know what they're going to do. The Penguins, we don't know what they're going to do. Dude, it's in like 2 weeks or whatever it is. 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
Parts of 3 weeks.
And we don't know who's selling it.
Yeah, and if
Nashville's like, we're still in this shit.
if all
Yeah.
those teams end up believing in themselves, it's going to make for a very boring trade deadline. But then we get to talk about them being ridiculous and believing in themselves, which is a fun conversation.
It'll make for a better offseason.
Sure, yeah, it will.
Because April,
No, it won't, because they'll believe in themselves in the offseason. That's when the delusion hits heights.
Every
yeah.
team is in line for the Stanley Cup
But
in
April
July.
17th, no, you forget about the early part of the offseason when there are people sitting there, not in a playoff spot, really, really mad about it. And then they do silly things.
They do.
Like,
if you want to
fire
take
the
advantage, that's the
coach.
time to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
But again,
that's
by
when you
August
put your
1st, the
phone-
Senators are winning the cup again, and we know. Like, it's you know, it's happening. Every August it
Not
happens.
April. Not April. April and May is angry season.
Kyle
That's
Dubas
when
in
teams
his
get mad.
in his quotes to the media, since you brought up coaches, doubled down on his belief in Mike Sullivan, who's a very good coach, but he's very adamant that Mike Sullivan will be his coach moving forward.